So, well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our career chat today, focused on the information technology pathway. And our special guest today is Jesse Hill, and he's from Atomic Object. And he's an Accelerator Manager, which is a title that we're going to get to learn about today, along with his career path. So welcome, Jesse. How are you?
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So we have 30 minutes to not only hear about your career path, but to help young people get the little ins and outs of what your particular role is, but also what your company does, and just give them some of that information that they can't necessarily learn about by doing career research. That's why these personal stories are so important. And so we're going to get started, Jesse, by taking you back to when you were 16 or 17 years old. Is this where you thought you'd be? Tell us what you were thinking as a teenager and kind of that career path to where you ended up today.
Yeah, it is roughly where I thought it'd be. I loved history in high school, and I loved literature, and I loved philosophy, and was pretty interested in studying all those subjects in college. But I was also very worried about finding a job on the other end of it. And so I wanted to major in something that I knew would be a good career. And I had taken some elective classes in high school that included a lot of software development, and I enjoyed it. I found that it came fairly easily, and I thought it was interesting, and it seemed to be a good field to go into. So I majored in computer science in college and had some internships during college, which were really great experiences and made me feel confident starting out in software after graduating. And it's been a long time. I graduated in 1998 from college, so it's been a little while, and I worked for most of my career as a software developer, and I'm in a management role now.
Well, good. So I'm going to help unpack some of that for the young people, because they love to hear how people got from here to there. So you obviously had an early interest in the career computer science, so that was pretty straightforward for you to get that major going. How did you even get your first internship? How does that even work?
It works differently for everybody. My story is a little unusual. I was in a computer science class at Calvin. That's the college I went to. And the professor had a guest show up to one of our classes who told us a little bit about his company and mentioned that they were looking for a couple folks to skip a semester of college and go to Arizona and work from January through August as an intern. And I was fortunate that I had the opportunity to do some AP classes going into college, and I had the flexibility with my schedule to be able to take a semester off. And so I went to Arizona in January, which was a good time to go, and worked for 8 months doing software development. And I was one of the 2 people who was interested in doing this. So I had a pretty good shot at getting the internship, but I was actually the only one who did. And my interview was only about 25 minutes long. I sat in a cafe with the recruiter, essentially, and he asked me some questions about how I'd solve some different problems, just told him a little bit about my backstory, my life, and that was it. Yeah.
Well, I think the important piece of that is that it was that connection with a person that was networking, right? Someone came into that class and that you took the opportunity. So there wasn't like someone said, hey, you come do this. You actually had to pursue it a little bit. So I just want to put that out there, that you're now part of people's network, and we're going to share your email at the end. But these connections that you start to make are part of this career journey. How else has that proven to be true in some of your jobs along the way?
Well, it's interesting. Paul Vanderlei is the guy who got me that first internship, and that turned into a full-time job after college. And I was working with a small company that was acquired by IBM, so it turned into a job at IBM. And then After a long time, I was finding that I was looking for something I wasn't getting from my role at IBM. And same guy, Paul Vanderlei, got me connected with Carl Erickson, who's the founder of Atomic, and essentially got me a job at Atomic. So I've pretty much relied very heavily throughout my career on that one connection. But I find that networking is a scary thing for a lot of people. It seems like you're asking for people's time, or it seems kind of like maybe a little disingenuous, or a thing people might not want to do, especially good computer scientists who tend to be towards the more introverted side. But I found that it's the thing that really enriches careers and creates a lot of opportunity, both in terms of finding work. I'd 100% rather be able to find a new position if I needed to through a trusted connection than through a random job posting. And I think my chances of landing the job would be much better through a trusted connection than through a random job posting. But also, it's really nice to be able to know something about the company you're joining. You might like the job description, but are you really going to enjoy the team environment? Are you really going to enjoy the expectations that the company has? Are you going to like working there? It's very advantageous to be able to talk to people that actually work at that company and get firsthand story of what it's really like to be there. But outside of new jobs and new opportunities, it's really nice to know people in the community. Just even if you're really happy with your position, because that can lead to interesting opportunities outside of work to either participate in events in the community or serve on boards. That kind of stuff can be fun. It also can just enrich your experience at your company, because maybe when you learn more about the environment at other workplaces, you might appreciate yours a little bit more, or you might be able to learn something from the experiences other people are having, whether it's challenges they're facing or opportunities they're taking advantage of. So I think that it takes some work, it takes some effort, but it's really worth the time. I seem to have lost audio, so I'm gonna take off these headphones and see.
Nope, that was me. I did not unmute myself. So thank you for sharing about networking. You were fine. I was just talking. So thank you for kind of sharing that initial part of your career journey, that internships were really critical for you. So being at Atomic Object, why don't you, actually let's go back to the job when you were kind of interning in that early part of your career versus your management position. Some of the young people would like to know kind of ins and outs. What's your daily work like? What kind of projects might you have worked on back then, or what's happening now? That just kind of paint the picture of what a typical day is like for your programmers, or that side.
Yeah. Different cultures at companies can create for a very different environment in terms of a daily schedule. But I was really fortunate in my first job that it was light on meetings and heavy on collaboration and getting work done with other developers in the company. So a lot of software teams these days will use what's called an agile process, where you work in a thing called sprints, which are just a time-boxed, usually they're essentially like 2-week efforts, where at the beginning of the time period, you'll plan what work you want to do. In the middle, you'll do your best to get that work done. At the end, you kind of show off what you've been able to accomplish and talk about how it went, and plan the next 2 weeks. And so for a lot of developers, every 2 weeks there's a set of meetings they're doing to either plan the future or review what happened. And in the meantime, we usually have what's called a team stand-up, which is a meeting with your software development team. Sometimes that's just internal to our company. Sometimes it includes a client, where we talk about what we're up to, how things are going, if we're blocked on anything. So often my day starts out with getting online, checking my inbox, seeing if there have been any developments overnight that I need to pay attention to, and getting those types of things taken care of. Then often it's picking up whatever I was doing the day before, and either that's research where I'm trying to learn what I need to get some work done, or it's building tests so I can make sure that the work actually is complete and behaves the way I want it to behave, or it's actually building software that makes the test pass essentially and builds out the features that a client needs. And Atomic works very collaboratively, so I'm usually working with someone else all day. There's kind of the stereotypical picture of developers by themselves in the cubicle with their hoodies pulled over. But my first meeting today was with clients where we were discussing the outlook for their project and what issues are really important to them. So after I got off that call, I jumped on a call with the other programmer I'm working with to talk about the information we just learned and what our approach is going to be for today. And then generally it's building software together with another developer throughout the day. We'll take a break for a company stand-up. So we have everyone in the company have an opportunity. It's kind of like a coffee break where you can share announcements about interesting things coming up. Maybe congratulate people if there's been some nice project success that you want to talk about. And then, we'll break for lunch, but it's mostly working together to either learn some new technology or write some code to do something, and that's the day most days.
So what I hear is those teamwork skills and cooperation skills and collaboration skills that are being taught in high school are very transferable to the world of work. And even though you're often introverts in the coding world, that teamwork is so important at communication and working together. And it sounds like it's very project based, which would seem very positive to a lot of people. Is that one thing you like about your job, is that projects based?
Yeah, I really like building useful things for people and being confident that I've made someone's life better. So either a job that was sort of tedious is now easy and they don't have to spend that effort anymore, or maybe they can do something now that they weren't able to do before. And when I worked for IBM, we built a lot of software that we hoped someone would use, maybe somewhere. But now that I work for a consultancy, we get to talk directly to the people who are going to use our software. They have real concrete problems, and we can design for those things. So that's been really nice. I really like knowing that I'm solving a real problem that a real person has. And it's really great being able to demo working software and see people's eyes light up when their idea has come to life and a real thing that they can use. You're absolutely right about the teamwork aspect. You can't do anything terribly interesting in software by yourself. People have really high expectations for what software systems can do, what features you can build in an application. So to build anything particularly interesting by yourself would take years, and most people don't want to wait years for their projects. So working together with a team is really important. At Atomic, we work almost all day with someone else because we really want to help each other learn. We want to do our best work, and we feel that having multiple perspectives can lead to better outcomes. We also want to make sure that there's good communication through the team. So if I know all of the things about one part of the code and someone else knows all the things about some other part of the code, that's a bad setup, because if I go on vacation, now the team can't get work done. Or if I leave the company, now we're in really bad shape. So we really want to make sure that everyone understands code base well, and that's part of the reason we work together. One thing I've found a lot in my career is that people think that software is hard because of all the technical challenges and all the complexity that comes with coding and networking and all that stuff. But my experience has always been that projects are successful because people communicate well and people like each other and people can resolve conflict. And when projects are really painful, it's because that's not happening, because there's politics or people aren't able to resolve different priorities or different issues or different preferences that they have. So there are different types of jobs in the industry. It's a really broad industry. There are different types of cultures, but at Atomic, it's collaboration all day. It's talking to people all day. And so if you really want a place where you can focus on a task by yourself and work by yourself, there are definitely jobs in the industry where you can do that. But being a software consultant is usually not one of them. Very, very, very people focused. And that has to do with our day-to-day, but it's also, we're really trying to solve problems for clients. And so we need to understand their hopes. We need to understand their pain points. We need to make sure that we're really solving the problem that they care about, because there are all kinds of problems we could solve. And if we build software to solve the one that isn't the one they care about, then we've wasted their money and we've wasted their time. The other thing is that it's a really emotional experience for people to hire a consultancy, because if they were software experts themselves, they probably wouldn't hire us. So often they're spending a lot of money hoping to get an outcome, and they're not really sure what the process looks like, or what things are hard or what things are easy. So they're really putting a lot of trust in us to help them find success. And failure usually looks pretty bad, because they might be spending $250,000, $500,000, couple $1 million with us. So striking out might be damaging for their career and for their prospects. So it's often an emotional thing for them, and making sure that they feel confident, making sure that they have the information that they want, making sure that they have trust that the team is executing in the way that they hope, is a really important part of the job, and almost more important than some of the technical things sometimes.
I love that you're just putting such a showcase on the human side of all this industry, because like you said, I think there are a lot of myths out there. So the young people who are with us today are kind of looking for some answers around kind of the nuts and bolts of the kind of software that you use, what kind of programming languages you use, maybe as they start to build up their own skill sets so they can be marketable in your industry. What might you like to share with them about that?
Yeah. Well, when I was going to college, it was a pretty easy choice. There are only a few languages out there that people really use. Now it's the space has exploded. There are thousands of languages, and that can make it really difficult to know where to focus and know which language you should really learn. And my advice to people is don't worry about it. Like, just pick one. They're all good choices. And what I mean by that is that there are new languages that come out every year. Things come into favor, they go out of favor. Your key skill as a software developer is not what languages you know, what technologies you know. It's your ability to learn the next one. So any popular major language out there will be a good first step. And
give me some examples. Hate to interrupt, but give me some. Just throw some of those types out there.
A good general purpose programming language for people to start with is Python. That's one that people kind of enjoy as a first language, and it's being taught in more colleges now as like the intro programming language. So Python is a good one, but I would say that the most important thing in software is the internet and internet applications. And so JavaScript and HTML and CSS are also really good places to put time and energy. Even if you have a job that isn't focused on web development or web applications, you'll be expected to know a lot about how those things work, and they're good general purpose principles there that will apply to whatever you're doing. And I think that it can be sort of depressing to hear that there are thousands of languages and whatever one you learn won't be the one you're using in 3 or 4 years. But the good news about it is that each language is easier to learn than the previous one, because so many concepts carry over. So your first language will be really difficult because you have to learn about how computers store information, how you can control execution, how you can get data from one part of the world to another. So there are all these like really difficult concepts that you need to learn to create your first applications. But a lot of those things will carry over to other languages. And so the question in chat is, what do I use on a daily basis? And it really depends on the day. I've had projects where there were 6 or 7 different languages in the project. The ones that we use most commonly are JavaScript is the one we use the most, and we tend to use TypeScript, which is like a set of extensions to JavaScript. So we do a lot of that, both in terms of web development, but also for mobile development and even desktop development sometimes. We use a lot of a lot of C#. We sometimes are writing Swift. We sometimes are writing Java. We sometimes are writing It can really vary. I've had projects where we were doing Objective-C, um, Java, C Sharp, um, JavaScript, Clojure, all in the same project. So it can be a lot.
So I think for the young people, you know, that are still learning at the entry level, that seems overwhelming. And so they're
Yep.
wondering, like, do you get to learn that on the job? Do you have to do extra hours outside of work to get caught up to speed? Like, how does that translate from, especially if you move from one company to another and you're not an expert in that? Is it once you know some language, it becomes pretty transferable, or how does that work?
Yeah, different companies will have different expectations. So some companies don't have great learning cultures, and they want you to come in sort of having all the tools you need to get the job done because they aren't well equipped to help you learn. Other companies are the opposite, where they don't even know what skills you're going to need because you're going to move from project to project, and they're very used to helping you get up to speed and very used to helping you learn. So um, some types of companies will know a list of things that they think you need to have in your back pocket to do that job well, and they'll kind of expect you to come in with it. Others just want to see breadth. They want to see that you're curious. They want to see that you've tried some different things. So as I was saying earlier, like the second language is easier to learn than the first. The third one is easier than the second. It's that same way with UI libraries, like user interface libraries. It's that same thing with everything in software, where people don't make one language substantially different from another just for the sake of it. Usually they want the next thing to be easy to learn, so they want the skills that you have to be transferable. That makes it more likely that they will get an audience for their technology. And so, so for the most part, when things are different, it's because there's some interesting new approach that they want, and you can focus on that. But I've definitely been up and running and writing code in a new language in a day. Languages tend to share a lot of common features and common approaches. So they get easier and easier. And that's why I wouldn't worry so much about picking the right one to start with. The right one to start with is probably just, do you have friends that are working in a language? Do you have a mentor that might be able to help you? Does your teacher at school know a language? Those are probably better reasons to pick a language than because it's the industry leading language or the hot technology of today.
That's great. That's some really valuable insight from your perspective. Thank you so much for that. Two questions. One, if you could just briefly touch on, we have a student that's interested in like the animation side of programming. Do you do animation? And then we have some just hardcore, like what colleges in the area might be a good place to start this education? And do you have to have a college education? I know that some roles you can go from an internship right into the full-time job. So kind of give us, so I know that's two different questions. We got the whole animation programming side, but then let's get into the education, what you suggest.
Yeah, we tend not to do a lot of animation in the software that we build because we're generally building business applications, and a lot of times in those applications, animation is more distracting than helpful. So we don't do a lot. We do have some applications that are built for the consumer market, and there might be a little bit more of it there, especially in terms of like an intro to the application to help people learn. So there might be some movement, but we don't do anything like Pixar where we're making movies or even stuff like what a video game company would do. So we, as a consultancy, that's just not our sweet spot. It is for other companies. So it's not something I have a lot of experience in.
So you obviously went to Calvin. So
I went to Calvin.
Just from your role, do you recruit from certain schools that you think have a better program than others? Do students have to even go to college these days because things are changing so rapidly? It's just getting out there and starting to do it. And just do a time check. We have about 4 minutes left for our time.
Most companies hiring for a software position will want a 4-year degree and will want it to be in computer science or related field. Out of the 35 or so developers at Atomic, we have one who didn't have a 4-year degree. We have 1 or 2 more who might have done a degree in physics with a minor in computer science, or a degree in electrical engineering with some computer science exposure. So I would say that if you want to get into the field, you should really consider a job. It's not, sorry, you should really consider a four-year degree, especially in computer science and computer engineering, something like that. There are companies that will not have the same requirements, but if you're thinking about a full career in software, I'd really recommend it. It changes after that bachelor's degree. Most companies these days are less interested in a master's degree or in a PhD, simply because a lot of the more interesting and more complex work being done now is being done in industry and not, at Berkeley or MIT. So there isn't the same need for a master's or a PhD that there may have been, unless if you have a specific career goal that might change that. If you want to be a professor, for example, people are going to want to see those advanced degrees, or if you want to go to like a research lab where that's your main role. And locally, Grand Valley's great. They have a wonderful program. Definitely recommend it. We do a lot of our recruiting from there. We also do a lot at Calvin and Hope. We're fortunate to have a lot of good schools in the area. Aquinas doesn't have a computer science program, so we don't do much recruiting there. But we really love our schools in West Michigan, focus on those schools for our Grand Rapids hiring. And then we have another office in Ann Arbor that does more with U of M and Eastern and some of the schools out on their side of the state. We definitely have some Michigan State grads too. They've got a great program. So
yeah. So yeah, just in our final 2 minutes, thank you for sharing that, because that's helpful to young people to understand that the college degree for this type of work is important. So someone had a question earlier too, and this kind of matches up to the one that just came in, like consulting. How much of this field is the consulting versus, like you said, I think I heard you say that some people are pure programmers. What would that ratio maybe be as far as the job availability out there?
Well, I would say there's probably 8 or 9 normal app development jobs for every consulting job. So most software developers don't work as consultants, but I think it's a really great thing to look into. A lot of variety in terms of what kind of work you're doing. You get to work with a lot of different clients on a lot of different projects, see a lot of different technology, and it grows a broader skill set than simply focusing on one application for one company. So I'd really look into it. And there's sort of an expectation that you need to be an expert to be a consultant, but we hire folks right out of college every year to join us and to learn how to do the job. So I'd highly recommend it. I think it's much more focused on solving real concrete problems for real people, and less like building a thing that you hope someone out there will use. So it lines up well with what I like to do.
That's great. We really appreciate you taking the time. Those 30 minutes always go super fast. I'm hoping that the young people will be motivated to continue some research using the internet and different resources that are out there. Can you just, as we finish up, just give them the big picture of what you do? You have an internship, I believe, don't you, that you guys organize every year?
We have an intern right now that's working with me. We might not have internships in the future just because of some changes to our business model.
Sure. Okay.
But what we do is we throw them right on the project, working with a team, working for a client. And it tends to be a great way for people to learn a lot and do something like productive and useful in their time with us, as opposed to working on something where it's just a prototype or they're just doing some internal stuff. So our interns tend to like that.
Is there anything else for high school students that they could be doing just to keep these, to keep their skill sets being developed and keep it interesting for them as they build their portfolio?
First robotics stuff is great. If people have a program that they can join, there are a lot of great classes online now, a lot of free ones that are really worth checking out. If you go to our blog, spin.atomicobject.com, we've got a lot of posts that people have written on there about how to get started with a career in software and what might be good resources for someone who's getting just getting started in their career.
That's great. Thanks, Jesse. Thank you so much for your time today. Yep. And students, as you see on the screen is Jesse's email address. And so if you have a follow-up question, feel free to send that his way. And I just wanted to point out 2 other resources, roadtripnation.com. If you hover over career exploration and then click interest, they have a number of hundreds of little interviews like this with different professionals, and you can focus in on the IT area and just learn about a number of roles that you may have never heard about either. And then for the nuts and bolts, the onetonline.org is a wonderful research tool to kind of get in the details of, you know, what kind of money do you make and what's a typical day like, and what kind of education is needed for the variety of IT careers. So use those tools to continue your research. Jesse, thank you so much for all you do to help our students in Kent County.
Oh,
Really
for sure.
appreciate your time. You have a great
Thank you.
day. Thank you, everyone.